Okay, I'm here.
Hey, JJ.
Yeah, I'm on.
Good,
Okay,
good.
a little tricky. Bruce, I thought you had changed this a few weeks ago to Wednesday, but maybe I got it wrong. But I'm on. I'm on.
Good.
Okay. Okay, let's see here. Okay, there it is. Okay,
All
All right, it's 7 o'clock. We want to give people a couple more minutes.
right. Okay.
All right, somebody has logged in with their iPhone. Looks like they're connecting their audio. We'll see who that is once they connect their audio.
Hi, it's Joseph Green Bishop.
Oh, hey, Joe. How you? That's the main man.
Hey, Tiger.
Hey, how you doing, Joseph?
Fine. How are you guys?
Pretty good.
Great.
Yeah, for Joseph is attorney by education, a journalist by trade, and he's a former congressional staff person, right? And he and Ron Tarburton have been taking a look at all of the research so that we could meet the requirements of the Navy, okay?
Hmm.
Oh, we're getting everybody on there. I see I see Mother Dear in her car chauffeuring the children around, huh?
Yes.
You got to do it by yourself because hubby down there in North Carolina, huh?
Yeah, I'm on football duty tonight, so
All right. Well, do your thing now, okay?
Yeah, Tiger, this is Dr. Gray. I'm just on as an observer. Foot
All right.
soldier.
Okay, very good, very good, very good. Just for your information, folks, Dr. Gray has an organization, nonprofit, the minority, what's the name? I'm always getting
The American
American
Minority Veterans Research. That
research.
research is very important.
Right, right. Okay, I got it now. Okay.
All
And
right.
I got a couple calls from folks like Tom Harris out of Indiana. You know, a couple of them, you know, they can't be on tonight, but they asked me to bring them up to date. So whenever you get ready, Dr. X, we can go on and let it rip, man. 'Cause we
Okay.
got a few people on now. We got Naomi and we got Joseph
Yeah, fantastic. Fantastic.
and JJ. All right.
Yeah. So what you should see here is the agenda. The meeting is now called to order. It's 7:03 p.m., September 27th. Can we get someone to open us up with a prayer and followed by the Pledge of Allegiance?
Okay. KT, open us up with a prayer, brother. Is KC still on? If KT's not on, I guess he's our chaplain, right?
Yeah, it looks like he's
All
frozen.
right, if we can look to the
Oh.
Lord. Can you hear me?
Yes, go
Yeah.
ahead.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Okay, let's look to the Lord. Father God, we thank you for this day. We thank you for waking each and every one of us up this morning. We ask as we conduct this meeting, let it be conducted in decency and in order. You said where there's two or more gathered, you'll be in the midst. So we thank you for being here with us. And we pray for the people that wanted to be here but cannot be here. And we pray for the folks that are on their way to the meeting that have not arrived yet. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you.
Amen. And now to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the
to the
flag
flag for the
of the United States of America
To the
and
republic
to
to
the
the
republic
republic
which
for
for
stands
which it stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
justice.
and
and
justice
for all.
for all.
All right, now we're at the point where we're talking about the minutes. I see that you have suspend next to that, Tiger.
Yeah, suspend, yeah. It's been so long, I don't know where the minutes are. Okay, but I do have some notes. But if we can go to the treasurer's report, that's the one I want to make sure that Naomi knows that she can draw down on any of that $2,000 as she moves forward. Because the domain has to be paid for, the telephone and whatever else has to be paid for. Naomi, have you been communicating with our CPA on that?
No, the last communication, I sent an email of all the list of things that comes out. So that was the last, I think that might have been maybe last month or so that I
Okay.
sent that.
Yeah, I want to make sure the bills are being paid as we move forward, okay? So if we, whatever has to be paid for on that telephone, that domain or what have you, make sure you have a straight line to him because, that was approved by the NABETS membership to put that $2,000 up for your use as you need it, okay? So don't hesitate to use it as you need it, all right? I just want to say that, all
Okay.
right? Okay then.
Thank you.
Hey, look, you just keep tabs on it, all right?
Okay.
Anything else will have to come out of my pockets. Okay.
All right, so that's the treasurer's report. Report from the chairs, starting with me. I have nothing significant to report. I do want to let you all know that every first Friday we have an event in the Columbia area. And we're looking at having an event for the Dorie Miller committee in terms of Veterans Day, having a get together in your respective areas. So that's something that I will have a flyer for that I will share with you all, and that way you can share it out and about. So that will be the, I think, the fifth and final event that we will have for the year. So again, I'll send that flyer out to you all so that you can share it. Over to you.
Let me ask a question on that before you go forward. Is that last Friday or the first Friday?
The first Friday.
Okay. All right. I know what's happening. That it's homecoming for Morgan this year, right? So I just want to let you know that, right? So all of the Morganites are gonna be somewhere else
The office of the Albanian American.
on that first Friday, okay?
Okay, that's understandable. All right, now over to Honorable JJ Dirguati for your report, sir.
Okay. I think the way that I can be helpful now, besides the work I've done already, is to try to get major publicity for what we're doing. I spent my 82nd birthday up in Maine with my daughter Kara, and I think I've told you she's very, oh boy, she's very well connected in the music industry. And she's on the board of a group that looks for major stories that they can promote. And Oprah Winfrey is one of the ones on that board, and my daughter knows her. So what I did is I sent her some of those booklets that you've been seeing, okay? And she's kind of studied them and got really, well, not just now, recently, but in the last few months, really excited about this and said that this is something that she thinks the people on this organization are going to want to know because they want unique stories in America. And this is a unique story. And it's the story of diversity, black and white, and politically, all parties. So in my 4 days with her, she was nice enough to take out her, these cell phones today are very, very good. And she kind of interviewed me on her couch there on overlooking the sound there. I forget what it's called. Yeah, it's York Harbor, Maine. And I'm going to now kind of take this and I'm going to think about what somebody would think is really important, unique about this story and why it should have national publicity. And I will make this presentation to the chairman of the board of this media company that I'm on now and try to get them to see this as such an unusual story for America that it should be made into a much bigger story. So I'm going to let her, I have nothing to report except she worked on it. She interviewed me over a period of 2 days, was that 4 days? And she's now going to pick out what she thinks are the issues that would turn people on in America because of this story of, you could start off by saying racial exclusion, or because we had Dorie Miller in the midst, not in the midst, but as part of the problem with segregation. So you can't say it had nothing to do with race, that's for sure. But I understand the need to try to rest on the substance of what he did. And I'm now pretty familiar with that because I've worked with Tar Britton and Joseph Green Bishop, and we already put together a piece that I presented to Biden 3 years ago after that thing we had, and nobody responded to it. So I could see the need now to get the Secretary of Defense on this, since we see now that the Secretary of the Navy has done what we would expect them to do. And that's not to reply or to say that everything has been done. So we got to overcome that. And I think we will when people understand that the bulk of what he did was really saving those white sailors that were being asphyxiated. And when people say abandoned ship, he did not abandon his own crew on that ship that were in second, third, and fourth deck where they were being asphyxiated by the water mixing with the oil. And I mentioned that to Kara, and she thought that was amazing. So I think we're going to get some response to this. My daughter Kara is very effective as a communicator, and she's very well connected because, as you know, she's one of America's top songwriters, and she spent 2 years as a judge on American Idol when they had an audience of 30 million people. That was 2009, 2010. And she's still very active in the music industry as a songwriter, as a producer. So she's now taking this on personally, so her dad could have some help in an industry that I'm not that well connected to as she is. And that's an industry that might even get us to Oprah Winfrey, because one of the things Oprah's done, when she hears a good story from the people on this board, she then wants to develop it further. So I think this is something that we can look forward to. I expect something's going to happen. I don't know what it is, but I will give you a report when she comes back to me, since this is kind of emerged in the last couple of weeks with me and her.
Yeah, that's exciting. Very exciting. What questions do anyone have for Joe? All right, thanks, Joe.
Well, by the way, our questions, I got just to give you an idea, Kara already submitted those booklets that you have seen. Naomi, I think, is going to put some of them on the website. And the people on this board that were very clued into new stories, they developed 17 questions and they typed them up. And they wanted me to get familiar with those questions because they thought this would be the guts of what America would want to know about this story once they read those booklets. And they read my letter to President Biden. Now, if anybody should do this, it's President Biden. And by the way, the other thing I did is I contacted the staff this time of Senator Clyburn, because if anybody should be our connection to the president, although I know him from foreign affairs and I've testified in front of him, but I'm not going there. Presidents are not advocates. You know, they kind of sit in a line of protocol. And I think the protocol for us is to get, and I know it now, is to get a Secretary of Defense to say that he has studied this and he believes there was a mission, information that was omitted, and that this should now be reconsidered in full. And that's got to be his pitch to the president. Then it happens. That's the way it's been going on with my experience with this. with President Obama. I had one with President George H.W. Bush. I had another, the first one, Corporal Freddie Stowers from South Carolina. President Obama is the one that cleared. It took 20 years to get, by the way, and he was one of the ones we put in with Ricky Leland in 1987. Didn't happen until 2095. Excuse me, not 1995, 2015. And so that's how long it takes for these things to come up, the protocol, unless you can get a big story going. And that's what I'm trying to do now. And I'm not the expert in that, but I know Kara is. And I hope to maybe get her to come on once she gets some reaction from the people on this board, and then she'll report to you. And I told her I'm a member of a national board that's working on this. So she understands that she at some point should come on and report to you about what the reaction has been, which has been very good by the people who saw the booklets and the story. Now, can we get this to be a national story produced by people who do these things? And that's what we're working on now. But I may get her to come on the next meeting we have by Zoom. Okay?
Excellent, excellent.
I want to continue to contribute to this, even though it's 35 years since I started it. Everything, it's the last things that count with these things. So let's make sure it's a good story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for your report, Joe. We're now moving on to the report from research and evaluation.
Well, before we go, I have the remarks from Dr. Dati. She has COVID, incidentally. And if I can just read her prepared remarks, okay?
Sure.
All right. Welcome. It's time to get back to work. Despite the Secretary of the Navy's response to Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson's letter to President Biden requesting the Medal of Honor be awarded to Doris Miller for his actions at Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, our committee remains steadfast in our determination to pursue the MOH for Doris Miller. In a letter dated May 10th, 2022, Secretary Carlos Del Toro, in denying Congresswoman Johnson's request, stated, DOD regulations preclude further consideration of this award for upgrade unless new substantive and relevant material evidence is presented that was not available. On September the 19th, 2022, United States Senator Tim Kaine submitted a request for the award of the MOH to Charles French and Doris Miller, both sailors in the United States Navy during World War II. The Dorie Miller Medal of Honor Committee supports both, but our focus is on Miller. The U.S. Navy's resistance to this award, which we view as appalling, is consistent with the historical attitudes of the Navy, which at that time included the United States Marine Corps, which denigrated the President Franklin D. Roosevelt's Executive Order 8802, which prohibited discrimination in the defense industry and created the Fair Employment Practices Committee to monitor hiring practices. My friends, our work is cut out for us, but we knew that from the beginning. Institutions tend to maintain themselves by protecting traditions and past personalities, regardless of their frailties or misguided notions of facts. Let us move forward. Tonight's agenda will be dedicated to entertaining ideas and strategies to reflect current obstacles to our mission, the United States Navy. Our research team, composed of Ron Tarburton and Joseph Green Bishop, has submitted a letter which contains evidence to support our position. We will hear from them later. However, notwithstanding any other matters, this issue is political and there must be a groundswell of support for Doris Miller. Our individual initiatives by co-chair J.J. Diaguardi, Naomi Burrell, and others continue, but may need more coordination for maximum impact. In 2011, at the National or NAACP National Convention, A resolution was adopted to secure the MOH for Miller. We are uncertain about the follow-up to that convention, but we have reached out to the NAACP to join our efforts. All veterans organizations bearing the name of Dorie Miller have been contacted. The Divine Nine, Greek fraternities and sororities, have been contacted via National Hellenic Council. The Tri-State, Maryland, DC, Delaware, International Brotherhood of Elks of the World has been recruited, but there has been no follow-up with a national or grand. Likewise, the Prince Hall Masons and other orders of Masons must be recruited in addition to the various female organizations, i.e. Links and etc. There are other groups, too many to name this evening. Tonight, we will refine our list. I suggest a timetable that concludes with the 75th anniversary commemoration of Executive Order 9981, July 26, 2023, which effectively desegregated the United States Armed Forces. Now, that executive order was July 26, 1948, but 2023 is listed here because that's the target date for us here. This is considered one of the most momentous events in the history of the United States as it dealt a fatal blow to Jim Crow. We cannot rush. We will get one shot and it must be on target. Senator Kane's effort is awesome, but we must build the groundswell which will result in the political will of all authorities, the United States Navy, DOD, Congress, and the President, to finally render justice to Dorie Miller's heroism, which will impact many others. And that's Chair Lady Dr. Dottie's report or remarks for this evening. And I think she's kind of on point because she summarized what we've been doing and where we are at this particular point. Okay, that's it, Mr. Chair.
All right, thanks, Tiger. Thanks for sharing that. Now we're going over to Joseph Green Bishop and/or Ron Tom Burton for the report from Research and Evaluations.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
Okay. So Tom Burton has been working on this thing, the research, probably more than 2 decades now. And I've only been involved with him maybe the last 5 years. I think that one of the reasons why the Miller matter has not, the medal has not been upgraded is that the proponents of the upgrade have made all sorts of arguments about what Miller did on that ship, the USS West Virginia. But none of the proponents were on the ship. You understand my point? Hello?
Yes, go
Yes.
ahead. We hear you.
Yeah. I mean, there's nobody who can say that Miller shot down airplanes. No one can say that alive today. There's no one alive today that can say who Miller dragged from below the ship and that sort of thing. The only thing we can depend on is the after action report that was written by Commander Hillenkoller, who, by the way, went on to become the director of the CIA. And I think, Tiger, one of the things, and we've had this discussion before, one of the things that's going to be an impediment is if we have 20 different people or 20 different organizations making 20 different arguments. I know everybody would like to argue that the reason that Dorie Miller did not get the Medal of Honor is because he was an African American. You can make that argument all you want, but the Navy and the Defense Department is not going to budge. Now, I think in the letter to Congresswoman Johnson, the Navy has given us an out. In the letter from, what's that man's name? Del
Toro.
Toro. Yeah.
Yes.
And I wish everybody would get a chance to look at the letter that Del Toro wrote, or just the excerpt that's in the letter that Tiger just read. Del Toro said, or wrote in this letter, excuse me, he says, please forgive me. Del Toro wrote in the second paragraph of the letter that's come from, the Tiger just wrote from Ms. Dorie, and we really need to pay attention to this. He said, the Department of Defense regulations preclude further consideration of this award for upgrade unless, quote, new substantive and relevant material evidence is presented that was not available. Now, what that says is that we need to demonstrate evidence that was not considered by any of the awards committees when Miller received the Navy Cross. And we think we have them. We think we have the government because, and those of you who are in the military will know this to be so, in Dorie Miller's 2 citations, a Navy Cross, and he received another citation, I think a letter from someone, there is no mention, absolutely no mention of his valor. Now, Ron Tarburton says that it's customary for a medal recipient to have his valor listed in the papers that accompany the citation. None of the things that Dorie Miller did are in the citation that was written. Now, why is this important? It's important because what they're saying to us is that new evidence is a standard. The ship's captain was killed. The officer who took over at Killenhofer wrote in the after-action report about the valor of only 2 people. He mentioned only 2 people on that ship for courageous activities. One was a man named Fred White, who was a lieutenant, and the other one was Dorie Miller. So I think, Tiger and others, the argument has to be made that evidently the awards board and the department did not avail themselves to Hillenkofer's report, after action report, because if they did, the valor that Dorie Miller performed would have been in those citations. And I think that's the strongest argument that we have, because they made it very clear they don't want to hear any more arguments about race. But they say that if you can show us new evidence, and I don't know how many people on this call have had the opportunity to read the after action report, but that after action report presents all the evidence that is warranted to have Dorie Miller receive the Medal of Honor upgrade. Does everybody understand what I'm trying to say? Do I need to further clarify it?
I think we got it. If
Okay.
there's anyone who wants
I
to ask-
understand it because Joseph, you sent me that after action report. I think it was 3 or 4 years. You copied it. You had a copy. And it was about 19 pages. And I've read it several times. And you're right. This is something that we need to go back and look at the substance of what he did and find some proof that he did it. We had to do this with Sergeant Henry Johnson.
No, we don't need the proof. The after action report is actually
The proof,
what occurred according to the ship's commanding officer. The proof is there. It's what the surviving officer said. Dorie Miller said. I mean, Killenhofer is our primary witness. Now, if I did not want to give somebody the Medal of Honor, what I would do is I'd hide the after action report, or I wouldn't give the after action report to the medals board. I wouldn't give it to him. And it appears as though it wasn't considered, because in his letter, Del Toro says unless new substantive and relevant material evidence is presented that was not available. That after action report presents new evidence that is material and evidently wasn't considered. And as I said earlier, the Defense Department told us 5 years ago, you got to show two things. I'm sorry, you've got to show one of two things. You've got to show racial prejudice, right? Which they have said now, that's not going to work. Or you must show new evidence. And the after action report is the new evidence. You can find that after action report online. You can go and you can Google after action report USS West Virginia, Pearl Harbor, and it will come up. And I tell you, read it and you'll see what Killenhofer wrote in that thing, that Dorie Miller and Fred White. In fact, Killenhofer says in the after action report that Dorie Miller and Fred White are deserving of the nation's highest awards. And you know what? There are some people on the USS West Virginia who did receive the Medal of Honor, but none of those people are mentioned in the report written by Hillenkoff. All right.
Mhm.
So, I mean, it's just like, it's hiding evidence. You don't want Miller to receive the award. Why? Because he's Black. We all know that. So what do? I hide the report. So evidently the Medals Board never saw this report by Hillenkoff. Never saw it.
I think we
Okay.
got to do that.
Right. Fantastic.
I like the letter you drafted, Joe. You and Ron drafted. I think it gets right to the point. Cause it would be signed by our chairpersons, okay, not myself. I'm just a project manager. But look, let me say this. Before we send this letter out to the Secretary of DOD, my view is that we need to have a groundswell of support from across this country because we're going to get one shot. And if we send a letter off, they will respond immediately with a similar response as from the Secretary of the Navy. Now that Tim Kaine is in the mix, Senator Tim Kaine, that adds a new dimension to it. And also now, just for your information, there are some other senators like Chris Van Hollen, who's been working on several Marylanders for the Congressional Medal of Honor for World War I and World War II. Okay, so the support is there among some congressmen, but what we have to do is to build that groundswell of support, and we have only a few months to do that. Now, this is political. We can say whatever we want, or go at it from any angle. Is political. Biden owes us some justice. Okay, Biden owes us. The Democratic Party owes us some justice. Okay, the Republicans too, but I'm talking about the people we put in office to speak for us. They owe us some justice. DOD, Austin is there because we put Biden in office. Okay, and so what we have to do throughout the African American community is build that groundswell of support. And also there is significant support in the non-African American community, and especially among some of the Republicans. Okay, so we don't want to make this a Republican Democrat thing, but those people we put in office to represent us, they're going to have to start standing up and representing us. Okay, and to do that without saying it, we have to go out and build that groundswell of support, and it should be there, but everybody is doing things individually right now.
Hey, Tagger.
Yeah.
Tagger. Yeah. I would recommend before you attempt to build a groundswell that you identify your key people like Kaine and like some of the others. And then you have people meet with them to make this new argument. Listen, This is why Dorie Miller should have this, particularly if Kane's going to introduce the legislation in the Senate, you know, educate those people so that they can go out with their best shot. Otherwise, what's going to happen is, well, one of the things that could happen is that everybody's going to come in making, all the people across the country going to come in making this race argument, which the Navy is not going to buy. But the Navy is saying they will buy the new evidence rule. So I'm saying all your key people, you need to educate, you need to say to them, read this report, read this after action report, look at what the Navy said in the letter. This is why we believe this metal should be upgraded. I think you need to educate some key people first
Well,
before you
that's
go with
why,
groundswell.
Joseph, that's why we wanted to reach out to all those groups, because we want them to take a look at your letter. And we need them to understand that the race cannot be the issue, okay, that we present, because we have to present substantive stuff. And this is one of the reasons I need your letter and your presentation crafted whereby it can appear on the website. And Naomi is on now, and if we can get our communications thing right, we can get people to think the way you're thinking. And that's what we have to do across this country, because we can't have people coming in, you know, like you say, man, with 50 different viewpoints. You know, we have to try to zero in on a specific focus, and you have given that to us. But now we have to convey that to everyone else so that everyone gets on the bandwagon and follow our approach. We have to lead on this, in other words.
What we need to do, Tiger, and what I'd recommend, and I agree with you, we need to rewrite our letter then. We need to rewrite our letter beginning with what this Del Toro said, you know, in that letter, and then go into our argument, you know, consistent, you know, our argument is consistent with what Del Toro is saying, that the Navy and the Department of Defense is looking for, new evidence. So I can have a draft. I need to speak to Ron. He's not on the call because, you know, he lives in Florida and they're evacuating because of this hurricane.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because he's over on that side near Tampa.
Yeah, he's there. So I hope to speak with him tomorrow, and then we can get a letter to you no later than Friday, a new draft with the.
Well, just take your time on it, okay?
Sure.
Because we have time. We want to get it right, okay? So if you get that, but also remember, we need a statement. Our arguments need to be on the website, because we want everybody else to follow our lead. We don't want people all over the board, because see, traditionally in the African-American community, they overplay that race thing, man. And we don't need to do that. You know, we've got the substantive, what I see as substantive facts here. You know, the fact that they may be racist, I don't know. But we know what happened back then. That was Jim Crow era, when they didn't even want blacks in the Navy. And the Marine Corps commandant, who was a member of the Navy, said if it was a question of having 250,000 black soldiers or 5,000 white soldiers, he wanted 5,000 white soldiers. I mean, that was their attitudes, you know? And so we know that, but we can't argue from that point, okay? But I think when people begin to look at the history of the era that we're talking about, all that stuff gonna smack them right in the face, so we don't have to talk about that. But what we have to do is to bring people on board with us and keep them focused on the substantive thing or the after action report, and leave that race thing on the side.
And like you mentioned, Tiger, this information needs to be on that website. That way it's a one-stop shop. Everybody's on the same page, same sheet of music, which is a good segue into website development from Naomi. Over to you, Naomi.
Thank you, Dr. X. If you don't mind, can you give me the capability to share my screen?
Yeah, sure.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay. You're gonna share it from the car. Okay. Talented.
And from your sedan, huh? That Cadillac.
From my sedan. I'm Uber, I'm Lyft, I'm all of that right now for my family. So let me just start by saying that this is a good way for us to segue into and also springboard into some of the items that need to be added to the website. I'm going to show you what we have so far. There are some elements that I have not published yet because I want to make sure we have a complete package when it is published. But there are some basic items that I do have on the website, at least so that people can get a basic idea of where we're wanting to go and the direction that we're wanting to go with the campaign. So I will go ahead and share my screen. This will stop. Yes, continue. All right.
Oh, let me stop share so that you
You-
can share.
Okay. I'm gonna go in. Can everyone see?
There we
Yep.
go.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is the home screen you're looking at now. So it says here, welcome to the Dorie Miller Medal of Honor campaign, no more delays. This get involved link sends you right to the contact page. So if anyone wants any more information, they can go right there. They can send us an email. The email is linked to our campaign email account. So all emails will go directly there. Next thing is the video that I showed at the last meeting has been uploaded. So it says the story of Dorie Miller. The reason why I did this is so that people can have at least a checkpoint to get information about the campaign. And I liked the interview so much that I thought it would be a great feature on the first page of the website so that people can learn a little bit more. So when you go on the homepage, that video is there of the interview with Tiger and Victoria. This is an edited down version of the video so that it just encompasses all of the basic points that Tiger makes about the Dorie Miller story and how it links to the campaign and what we're trying to achieve. So that video is there. Then Tiger a while ago sent me the NAACP resolution from 2011. That's actually on the NAACP website. So I included that so that they can see the type of publicity that has already been developed around this campaign. And I feel like that's a good place to put it on the first page so they can see the kind of backing that's already supporting this mission. And so I just put there NAACP resolution passage of legislation to award Dorie Miller Medal of Honor. And then I put a click to read here instead of posting the whole resolution because it is kind of long. I just put the button there for them to click on. So you click and it sends you right to the resolution and they can read it. And let's see, let's go to the next thing. Also, where it says topic, legislative and political action, this sends you to the actual resolution library for the NAACP. So you can kind of see the list of other resolutions that includes the one for Dorie Miller that's there in the library. Okay, all right, moving on to the next tab. The about page. And again, I'm going to send, you all can go to the link, but I'll send it in an email to everybody because I would like to have input from the committee of other items that need to be placed. I know, Tiger, there's some other things that you mentioned and Joe that you sent me as well. But what would help me is to know exactly the key documents that we want to add that's going to build a complete narrative for the campaign. That may not include everything that was sent, but at least if we target the key documents, including images, because again, we're trying to build a story and a narrative. So it's going to be important for us to choose exactly the type of documents that we want to add. But on the about page, I put the mission, which is to educate and mobilize this nation to render the highest military merit, the Medal of Honor, and so forth and so on. This find out more again sends you to the contact page for those who visit the site to ask more questions. And then I updated with the committee, starting with Tiger. Tiger, you can let me know if that picture is okay
Yeah,
or
I'm gonna have
not.
to get you
If
a
you have
different
another
picture now. I got
Okay.
my American Legion hat on. I got to get you a different picture. I put my Dorie Miller
Okay.
VFW hat on.
Okay, that'll work. That'll work. But this is your picture. I have your title, which is project manager. I picked from your bio the most important and relevant information and
Okay.
that ties into the campaign itself. So I didn't put some things, but the things that were relevant, I added. The
Beautiful.
same thing for you, Joe. The bio you sent me was already abbreviated, so I didn't really need to extract anything. I just put what you gave me up there, including your picture. Dr. Dottie and her bio, Dr. X and what you sent me, and Dr. Joyce. The only ones that I'm missing are the honorary chairpersons. I do not have any information for them at all. Pictures, bios, I don't have any information. So I need that information for the honorary
Okay.
chairpersons.
I got that. I got that.
Okay.
All right.
May I suggest an important one? Because, we have to go back to the genesis of this. And we had one very likable, powerful African-American who was the founder of the Hunger Committee in Congress, and he was the chairman of the Black American Caucus, and that was Mickey Leland. He's got to show up here someplace, because without him, this thing never would have continued all these years. I mean,
Hey, Joe, he will be part of your story. He will be part of your story. Okay. Because one of the things about this is there was a special relationship, and that story will be told. Look, one of the things that we have to do, and this is just my view of things, for the last 35 years, just about, well, let's say 30 to 35 years, there has been one consistent voice for the Dorie Miller Medal of Honor, and that has been J.J. Diaguardi. A lot of us have been hitting and missing, and then we go on to some other issues relative to the African-American community. But throughout all of these last 30 to 35 years, there has been one consistent voice, and that's yours, JJ. Now, Mickey Leland will be part of that story, which is one that we want to tell and we want the people to know, okay? So don't worry about Mickey. Mickey's gonna get his just due, all right?
And to add to that, in the beginning, when I said that there are some tabs that I have not published, that's one of the tabs. Tiger and I are working on a write-up to be able to include the work, Joe, that you've done and that Mickey Leland has done. So those tabs have not been published because when we do, we want it to be right. So just to give you an update on that, okay? So again, all of the committee members, and I need the honorary committee members. The historical perspective, as you requested, Tiger, I added the monument.
And by the way, the person that maintains that monument is on, Nolan Lewis.
Oh,
Nolan,
Nolan.
click your face on so they can see what you look like, man. All right, there's Nolan. Nolan is in
Hi,
Delaware. He maintains that.
Rolling with
And,
Nolan.
and the other thing is, Ron Tarburton was there when, with Joe Biden and all of us, when that monument was first unveiled. Okay, so I'm not sure how we play that angle yet, but Joe Biden gave an excellent presentation. What was that, 2003 or 2002, whatever it was, okay? Because his Sergeant Wilson K. Smith, was a good friend of mine, and all of us here in Baltimore. So the thing is, I want you all to know who's maintaining that monument. Nolan S. Lewis, folks.
Yay.
Delaware. All right.
And what we could do is that we could, if there's a YouTube clip of President Joe Biden doing the speech, we could add that link underneath of the image. And if people want to see it, they can click on it. So we could add that as well in the future. So Nolan, you'd be happy to know that the picture of the monument made it onto the website. And so I included that with the historical perspective, especially because we start off talking about the services of colored Americans in the wars of 1776. So that picture is relevant to go along with the historical perspective of colored Americans in that served, and also to talk about Dorie Miller. So so that's there. And then of course the contact us page that we have. So I would love to get feedback from the committee on ways that we can improve, but this is where we are so far. Also, and this is published, so anyone who wants to see this can go right to the website and see it. But again, there's some tabs that I haven't posted. And again, I took down the outreach and events one because I haven't been as on top of updating the events, but I'd like to coordinate with Dr. X to make sure I'm including all of the outreach and communications to that page so people can know where they can go and how they can support us in terms of events. And then I will republish that tab as well. So that's where we are. Looking for feedback. Definitely want to target those most important documents that we want to post to the website so that we can build our communications and our story around the campaign.
I think it's excellent. And I'm going to send you some notes. I hadn't been feeling well the last couple of months, but I think your work is excellent. Just two things. I think we've got to mention the role of Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson someplace on our site. And also, a lot of people don't know it, but there was an effort, the effort to get Dorie Miller the Medal of Honor was actually started in the 1940s, shortly after the war. And on the congressional side, Congressman Dingell from Michigan, not the one who died recently, but his father was the first one who stirred this up in the Congress, that he get the Medal of Honor, and then the role of the African-American newspapers. But I'll send you a note.
Yeah, the Pittsburgh Courier was all over that, Joe.
Yeah.
I had some articles from them. And of course, the Afro was right there as well. But the Pittsburgh Courier was a strong advocate. And what was the other one? The Chicago Defender?
Yes.
Yeah, they were strong advocates for Dorie Miller way back then. But, you know, the point I was making is that for the last 30 to 35 years, and of course, you know, you're right, I should have mentioned the Congresswoman in that, but I had been working more closely with Joe than I had the Congresswoman, okay? And I do know that he has been consistent, and I've collected those articles or commentaries by William Raspberry and others on the work of Joe. But yes, you're absolutely correct. We do need to do that, especially since she's going to be retiring.
Yeah, and even though she's going to be retired, she's still going to have some pull. We're going to need some congressional friends.
Yep.
Okay.
So we're getting to the 8 o'clock hour. We're now at the communications and outreach item. I talked a little bit about upcoming events. I will get with Naomi and solidify the dates and the specifics on the communications. Tiger, I see your name on here as well. Anything you wanted to add?
Well, the only thing I will add is where we had that discussion on the 6-month plan for victory. That 6-month plan is based on the fact that we want our work completed by April, because July 26th, 2023 is Truman's executive order, or the 75th anniversary of Truman's executive order. And we think that there is a message in that. But what I'd like to do is to have everyone submit any suggestions and ideas for a 6-month plan for victory. How do we proceed over the next 5 months, I should say, to achieve this victory? Because when we get it, we ain't gonna get but one shot, and we got to make it a good one. Okay. Now, in my discussion with people, and I'll bring that to you too, Dr. X, because you one of them cues. I had to chastise my boy Tom Harris today, because I say, look, man, you know, the NAACP has been responding more recently, okay? But the Divine Nine or the National Panhellenic Council, we ain't heard nothing from them. So I said, what we've got to do, I know some Kappa brothers that I'm gonna have to get together to start making some noise with the Divine Nine. And I need the same thing to happen over there with the Omegas. Okay, so we've got, you know, in our own individual areas, we've got to make some noise, and we've got to effectively use social media. We can't be afraid to use social media. And if you have some ideas that you want to submit on social media, you know, send them to Naomi. She knows how to craft it, massage it, and send it back out where it can flow. Okay. And if there's, whenever we're doing things, like for instance, I have a lot of speaking engagements, especially with Veterans Day coming up. Dorie Miller should be our #1 topic, along with the 75th anniversary of Truman's executive order, which desegregated the military. And let me say this about that too. That executive order is the most momentous event in the history of this country. I can't, even the Civil War don't necessarily compare with that. Okay, think about that now. Truman's executive order. Truman has never gotten credit for all he did. Also, key into your computer to secure these rights. Truman commissioned by executive order a civil rights commission to study the conditions in this country. The executive order 9981 is a product of that. Truman never got his just due, all that he did, because he was a straight shooter and said what he had to say. And some people didn't like what he said, but he was always trying to do the right thing for America. Okay. And so that event, every one of us need to know it, because that's going to be part of our strategy for securing this Congressional Medal of Honor. But whatever ideas you have, please submit them so that we can begin to compile them and get them back out at the next meeting, because we need to have a plan together by our next meeting. Okay.
One of our congressional friends has to be James Clyburn. He is so incredibly important for what happened to the president, as you know, with the fact that he got the Georgia delegation behind the presidency and whatnot.
South Carolina.
So I think someone needs to make sure. I've been trying to do it. When I went down on the inauguration to deliver that letter to the chief of staff of Biden, I couldn't meet with him, but I knocked on Clyburn's door and it was locked. And then Ashley, I forget her last name, she was the legislative counsel. She was in there and she spent a half hour with me, and I left her everything, including the letter, to pass on to the president and to Chairman Clyburn and to James Clyburn. So all I'm saying is that we need to get him in the fold as one of our congressional colleagues on this. He's too important, and he has a lot of sway, I'm sure, with President Biden. Not that we would design around the Secretary of Defense, but I'm sure the Secretary of Defense would be very happy to see someone like Clyburn supporting this. And don't forget, the first medal for World War I went to Corporal Freddie Stowers. That's the first one that I managed to get through President George H.W. Bush in 1991, and that's South Carolina.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for sharing that, Joe. Next item is finance in terms of grants, donations, gifts, etc.
Okay, look, Dr. Dotie and I discussed that finance thing, and each of us have some contacts that we're going to write to, but you know, the first thing people are going to look at is your website. And once our website is tight, this is why we have to move expeditiously on that. Then we can send those letters out. One of the persons we have wanted to send a letter to would be Oprah Winfrey. Okay, I haven't talked to her for many years, but she's one of the persons that we want to send some stuff out to. Also, the Reginald F. Lewis Foundation. You know, Reggie's wife and I are good friends. Now, you all know he was the first Black billionaire, right? Well, he was also the quarterback on my high school team. I'm 3 months older than him, right? He was the quarterback. I was the center for 3 years. He pat me on my ass to get down, right? To snap that ball, right? So that was our little personal joke. But at any rate, we have some people out there that we can write to. There, Robert Johnson. There are many of them who would leap on what we're doing, but we've got to have our website together so that when people check us out to see who we are, they will see us as serious players. Now, the other thing too is those of you who have social media skills, once that website is tight, and it should be tight by the end of this, within the next 30 days, we've got to go on and hit it, okay? But we will be sending out letters around Veterans Day or just before Veterans Day to try to ask for some money for this project, okay?
Yep.
Anybody else who know people or have contacts, you know, let's get together so we can help you craft that letter, okay?
Let's not forget the Ford Foundation. Darren Walker's African-American. He's the president of it. They got plenty of
Yes.
money. And one of their core values is racial equality in America.
Mhm.
So we need to put this, you know, on that list that he is looking at, I'm sure, as to what the details have to be for racial equality. Justice has got to be number one. And this is justice. When you know, act bravely in war and you're not treated like others, that has to be exposed and changed for the future.
Mhm, mhm.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so any announcements for the good of the order?
Dr. X, I want to say something. Naomi, thank you for putting our the statue from Delaware in there. But when we do secure this medal for Dorie Miller, and I'm positive that we will, his name will be going on that monument that you do. So all minority veterans that received that Medal of Honor name goes on that monument. And we have a celebration set up for next year, but we might hold on. And I'm the committee gonna do, because we have 2 other names that we're planning on adding to that monument. And Tiger, the Delaware General Assembly just passed a $100,000 bond bill to upgrade that monument. We're gonna get some work done on it here in Delaware. So let me know. And
All right, yeah, Nolan,
yes,
go
sir.
ahead and plan something for Medal of Honor Day. I'll
it's
get
all-
with you on that planning because this gives us a chance to highlight Dorie Miller and some other issues, okay?
No problem,
That's
sir.
that's March, around March 25th, is it?
March the 26th. Yeah, we do it every year, so we will pass
Okay.
it next year.
Well, listen, get with us. Let's make that a big event whereby we can get big time publicity from that, because all across this country, they're going to be celebrating the Medal of Honor thing. And we need to make that a big event, maybe even try to get CNN or somebody to cover it.
Well, I know I can get channel 6 and 10 here, so it's ABC and NBC.
Follow me on this one now. Look, Melvin Morris,
Yes.
you know, my girl, what's her name? The beautiful lady, I can't think of her name right now. I got it in my head. I got a picture of her right here. She did this piece on him, a documentary called Honors Delayed. What we might want to do is to see if we can get Melvin Morris to come up there again, because you know he's been up before.
That's what I was going to say. You were there.
and we can, you know, show his documentary Honors Delayed, okay? And we can kind of like work a good PR campaign around that. And then following that, that's when we hit them. You know, April is it, then we hit them hard, okay? But, you know, that's just one of the events. But anyway, I got it now in my head, okay? We'll get that together, all right?
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Nolan.
Yeah, thanks. Any other announcements? All right, over to you, Tiger, for any final remarks.
I'm good. That's it. I've spoke all night.
All right.
I'm done.
Oh, Tiger, I got another question. That Trubin order, do you have a number for that executive order?
Which one?
Like you gave it a 9981. Which one was that?
9981.
Is that the one that Truman executive order?
Yeah, that's Truman. Now, also look up FDR's 8802. I think that one's important too, because that was 1941, which brought about the Fair Employment Practices Commission, but it also opened up the Marine Corps and, it gave the opening for the Tuskegee Airmen and all these folks, okay? I think all of that's important. And see, one of the things we want to do when we do this, and this is all about a celebration of America. We ain't saying everything was always right, but America continues to pursue a greater union, okay? A more perfect union, as we say. So let's talk about, keep all of this couched within a celebration of America. And Dorie Miller, too, is a celebration of America, right?
Big one.
All right, at this time, I'd like to entertain a motion for adjournment.
So move.
All right,
Second.
all right, any in readiness? Right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you and have a great month and look forward to working with everyone in between this time. Take
All
care.
right.
Great.
Out here.
Take care now.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.